Hey everyone, I'm Fred Ranger and I hope you're doing good. If you aren't subscribed to this channel and you are into visual storytelling and the gear we use to tell our stories in this day and age, please make sure you are hitting that subscribe button, because on this channel and on the podcast that I run called Visual Storytelling Podcast, I share everything I've learned and sometimes have guests on and they share their creative journey. And if we can inspire one person to pick up this type of tool, doesn't have to be a Fujifilm, this type of tool to go out and start telling their story or their vision of the world, I think I've done my job of inspiring people. I got once inspired by a lot of people doing this, what I'm doing right now, and I thought I would, throw in my take on how to tell our stories in this day and age, because there's never been a better story or a better day to tell your stories, because the tools, wow, they're incredible. I'm just thinking about recently what Fujifilm has done to their whole lineup. Fujifilm is a company that is dear to my heart. I've been shooting with them for the past 12 years, and I've started with the X100, the original one, before it was hipster or hip to shoot with those type of cameras. Or maybe actually it was even more hip, I don't know, you tell me. But I started my journey with Fujifilm 12 years ago, and I started to understand why I was more attracted to something like that than my Nikon gear that I used to use back then. Yes, the size, yes, the weight, yes, the ergonomic, easy to bring on a travel. It was actually on a trip to Italy that I realized that. But more than everything else, I was falling in love or really liking how the camera brand or the company was treating their customers. And the more I think about it, the main reason why I'm still attracted 12 years later to Fujifilm and more recently LEICA is that I really think that those companies are listening to their users. And it sounds a bit cliche, but if it's a cliche, it's because it's true. They are really opening up the listening channels, and they are sitting down with professional photographers, amateur photographers, and really understanding what they want in a tool like a camera. If it wasn't for feedback, I don't even know if Fujifilm would be doing video. Yes, it's also a business decision to have a hybrid camera that you can use for both, video and photo, and the world was moving more towards video. But at the end of the day, it's still a decision that they made to go faster to being able to bring to market a camera like the XH1 back then that I really, really love it to the point where I sold it. I bought it again, and now I'm on the XH2S. This is my copy, and this is the XH2. This is Fujifilm who sent me that to test, and I'll have to send that one back. But all that being said, look at this. You have a perfect video camera that's filming me right now, 26 megapixel. This is a stack sensor, and really love the way the autofocus now operates, because back then, if I would do something like this, it would be very hard for the camera to focus. Now, very easy. Hopefully it worked, but this is for video. And if you want, the high res count, you have a camera like this one, 40 megapixel, or the X-T5 that just got released. But this is not about the specs. This is about the evolution of these camera brands that are really listening to their users. And I'm thinking Leica also, that just released the M6. You can debate the price. I did a whole video about it that you can watch here. But still, this is a camera that people were buying on the used market, and also that were asking Leica to either consider a comeback or make a camera that was a bit different, but to invest in film, basically. They decided to do it. Again, the price debatable. You can like it, you can not like it, but it's still a bold move to have listened to their customers and to have produced or put on the assembly line a camera like the M6, which is kind of an MP with a different skin, but that's a whole nother topic. I want to talk about also the technology that's really available these days. When I started telling my story, I was using, I think it was a Nikon D80, and that was for photography. And for videography, I was doing those type of videos with a Canon G7X, and oh boy, this was a very different world back then. Dynamic range, pretty much zero. Autofocus, it was Canon, so it was decent, but it was really hard to get anything that you wanted in focus. And great little camera, but it was harder, to get to a point where you're satisfied with the entirety of the story you're trying to tell. These days, if you pick up something like the XH2S or even the XH2 or an older XT3 or a Canon EOS R for that matter, wow, these cameras are incredibly designed. They are made for quality footage, quality photos, so it's hard to pick a wrong camera. So I'm happy that we're at a place now that it kind of becomes a personal preference or a personal decision based on what camera brands inspires you the most. There will always be technical difference. There will always be a camera with more megapixel, faster autofocus, and the eye tracking, and so on and so forth. But they're almost all up to par. Even Panasonic has made some incredibly better cameras, I would just put it this way, than the ones that they produced before. And even for photography, I'm thinking about the full frame that they released. Those are incredible cameras, almost as good as the LEICA SL, but for a fraction of the price. So there's so many options. But if you are invested in, as an example, a Fujifilm ecosystem, the good news is that they're not just releasing new bodies like the XH2 that I'm going to be reviewing, so make sure you're subscribed to know when that video drops, but also the lenses. You're actually looking at me through a 18mm f1.4 that gives me that nice separation in the background, and that lens didn't exist before. Yes, there was a 16mm that I used to own, but it wasn't weather sealed. Was it weather sealed? I forgot, but the autofocus wasn't as good as this one. And also you've got the 33 now that's replacing the 35. Love that lens. This is still, my OG 35mm f1.4 that has so much character that I will not sell because I'm in love with this lens. But the 33 gives you a new option with the weather sealing, the faster autofocus, and the same goes for the 56. This is my OG 56 that I've shot some of the best portraits and the ones that I love the most on this lens. But now there's a new option if you are just getting into the Fujifilm ecosystem or you need something a little bit faster and a little bit less noisier. So all that being said, we live in a very interesting era where you can pick and choose any of the major brands out there: Fujifilm, Sony, LEICA, Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, and you can't really go wrong. So if you are a content creator, you should investigate which camera actually inspires you to shoot more. For me, those are the Fujifilm cameras and the LEICA cameras that I use. I look at them and I'm like, oh, this is giving me the urge to go out to tell a new story, to capture a travel that I'm about to embark on, and so on and so forth. So I'm here to tell you, to report after 12 years of trying to find the perfect camera, and we know that the perfect camera doesn't exist. You just have to go see my friend at Camera Conspiracies. Has been trying to find the perfect camera for the past, 12 years too. And just like me, he hasn't found it. But the cameras are good enough, and actually more than enough, to tell your stories in this day and age. So I would like to see, what are you using to tell your story, and why? Because I think it's becoming more a question of being inspired by some gear. Yes, there are some differences, like I said, in terms of if you need super high res or if you need super slow-mo, it might skew your decision. But again, at the end of the day, any cameras that was produced in the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, it's pretty good. And I'm sure you can find one used or you can rent and see which one will you like the most and you're most inspired to shoot. So what are you using to tell your stories? I'm using Fujifilm mainly for video now, LEICA for photography. I will shoot, of course, the Fujifilm for photography sometimes. But what are you using, and what is the deciding factor for you when you choose a camera in 2022 and 2023 soon to be? I'm interested in learning more. Please put your answers down below. And this was just a short video. I will be reviewing this camera, the Fujifilm X-H2. It's been sent to me by Fujifilm. I will have to go back to them afterwards, but I am keeping my copy of the Fujifilm X-H2S that I've paid with my own money. Just want to make sure that people know that. And I'll also start reviewing the new lenses like the 33 and the 18. So stay tuned for that. But on that, I've been Fred Ranger. Please enjoy life, be happy, and enjoy your incredible gear. Cheers.